Poor Kate, you're the only one left at home.
It's weird that we're here together. It's just me and Kate. It's very, very strange. So, because
That's weird.
yeah, Matthew's visiting in Fresno. We're not sure when he's coming back, but he might want to move there. I don't know. um, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me today. I am so excited about the way that the universe works and how when we focus on our areas of growth and the opportunities that having a growth mindset gives you, the things that just keep popping up in my path and just leading me towards people that have like minds and visions and believing that the power of social media and just the law of attraction and what we put out there, how we create these bonds that are, you never would have seen them coming. Like a week ago, if you would have told me I'd be having the conversations I've had with Carly this week, I'd be like, wait, how would that happen? And then out of the blue, you get a text from someone who is also passionate about healing and feeling well and, living their best life and, the connections made. So I really appreciate all of the connection that we've all formed and how we have just the way that volleyball has brought us together. And so I just want to get started today and talk about families and building them and how having something that we're passionate about creates a bond between all of us and like the ways that maybe we don't even see it in parenting life, but that we are creating ways for our kids to become more self-aware. And I don't know, Carrie, I think you said that this conversation that we've been having has made you reflect. And I don't know, I think a lot of the things we do as parents sometimes are subconscious and they're coming from places that we don't even realize. But is there anything that you've noticed after we've been talking that has made you realize things that you've done in parenting to get these two amazing kids that you have where they are, to help them, see what they both have a passion, which is so incredible. So I'm wondering if you have any ideas or reflection on that.
I guess, if I had a recipe for it, I could sell it for millions of dollars. And, it feels a little bit like on the journey, you have these factors coming in and you get really lucky if most of them end up producing what we've both got going on. I think what comes to mind is fundamentals, just like in sport and family and parenting, being fundamentally and morally strong. Barry and I were talking about just us as a team and the balance that we've got there. But, being good people, getting good sleep, eating well, treating others like you want to be treated. When you're in sports, you're committed, you finish what you've started, just no matter what's going on. Learn from the coaches that they might not always be the perfect coach, but they're going to teach you about dealing with people in the world. And some of that's going to be negative people. And what can you learn from that? I know it's been a huge sacrifice on both sides for us as their parents and for each of the kids as athletes. Social life, sleep, things on the weekends, a huge sacrifice. And for us, our vacations, our extra money has gone towards propelling them into their sport, and natural skill helps. Barry and I were both good athletes. I was a very fast runner and played good soccer. Barry could kind of do it all. And we both made mistakes. And when you say life choices, that is kind of where it hits home for us, that we didn't always make the best choices in high school. And I have huge regret. I walked away from Division I soccer at University of Portland. But I also didn't have the involvement that these guys do from my parents, parent involvement in a different style of parenting back then, combined with completely lack of, technology at my feet. If I wanted to go talk to the coach, I could call him on the phone or drive to campus. And I literally had a kind of a tryout. if I wanted information on this, on the school or the sport, I went to the office and got paper. And like for Katie, I had a folder on my computer that was Katie VB recruiting, and I had the spreadsheets of all the conferences. I mean, it was just incredible information at our fingertips to get, her out there, and video. So there was a huge difference. But nonetheless, I made mistakes, and I regret not playing soccer there. I was burned out. I didn't take very good care of my body. I didn't stretch. I didn't take care of injuries. And my senior year, I just kind of went, meh, and Barry made mistakes too, and so as we have nurtured these guys along, that's been a big force of sort of not, every parent wants to prevent their kid from learning the hard way, but we've really seen the talent that they've got. We knew that they wanted it, and sometimes they needed that extra push and a little bit of, we're not going to let you make these same mistakes. If you really screw it up and you really bail out, that's one thing. But so that's just kind of been the circle of thought is, the fundamentals, work hard, support. Yeah.
What I love about what you're saying is that, I think a lot about the difference between using what you've learned in your path and the mistakes and the high points and the low points, but using what you've made to make you a better parent, rather than what you see can be a real problem, especially in today's world of living vicariously through your child. Mm-hmm. So I think there's such a different path between the things that you're saying, because you've been there and you've done that. And I have a similar story, and I love playing volleyball, but I've always loved it, but I never, because I didn't know, I didn't have the self-awareness. I was really timid. The things that I didn't know about myself that held me back athletically, I have used those things to, promote them to my kids. Like, put yourself out there. It's part of what I am so amazed about what Kate's learning in drama, is to see like that confidence and that presence to be out there and unapologetically like show yourself. I've seen it from my kids on the court. I never had that, and I didn't know what was holding me back. But now, as I've transitioned through life, you start to learn those things and you go, oh my gosh, I'm going to help them. But it's not a matter of like, oh, you have to do it because I didn't get to this level. It's just knowing, wow, like I learned something and I really want to help you learn it younger than I did. And, Carly and I were talking the other day, and she was talking about that journey of how hard she has worked, from, I think, Carly, you said, I looked on your website, it said, you started training at age 8. And, not every kid is up for that. But I know when you said, your kids wanted it, and Carly, for you to have the success that you've had, and know though that you have been putting that effort in since you were a tiny kid, what do you think about that? The relationship that you had with your parents and the way that, that has formed your career.
Yeah. As Carrie was talking, it made me immediately go to my uncle, because I shared a little with you, Wendy, but my uncle, my mom's brother, helped my mom raise me and my brother and my sister from when I was 4. So really young. He's the only father figure I really remember. My dad passed away when I was young. So he was kind of the reason that I started training early, because he saw some potential in me, like as an athlete, and he saw that I was excited about it. But he told me really early on at 8, like, if you want to do something, this is what it takes. It takes really hard work. And he was speaking to me from a place of having been a really good athlete, having played football and wrestled in college, and he could have gone on and played in high school. He played football and wrestled in high school, but he could have gone on and played in college. And he didn't have that like parent, not just his parents supported him and they wanted to be there for him, but maybe the kind of the path laid before him that this is what it takes, this is what you need to do. And so he felt like he didn't really get to fulfill his potential. And looking back, he wished he had done it differently. So he kind of showed me early on what it would take. And I bought in. I mean, at 8, I bought in. I was lifting heavy weights at 8 years old until now. I mean, I ran track nationally, and then I started playing volleyball, and I started having these visions of like, oh, I could be an Olympian. I can do that. But I knew that if I wanted that, I had to put in all of this extra work, and sacrifice was a big part of that. We would look at my decisions like, you can go to this dance or you can go to this tournament. It's on the same day. Like, you have to make a choice. And it's like at 15 and 16, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to go to the dance. Like, I really want to be with my friends, and I want to like pick out my dress and have that social interaction. But at the same time, I knew, okay, but in the future, like we talked about that a lot, in the future, what do you want to accomplish? And to do that, you have to make tough choices. And so that feeling of like, my choices will determine where I'm going to go, and starting to understand that early, that really that's why I was able to accomplish what I have, is because I started early and I learned early and I made tough choices early on. But it's really cool to hear, Carrie, to hear your story and how you've had success with your kids and where they're going with their passions, because you learned from your path and now you can relay that. And I feel like that's a similar situation as my family. You know, my uncle did that for me. He did it for my siblings too. And each of us were different. We were all volleyball players. We all had potential, and I wanted it differently than they did. So I put in the extra work. I would wake up early and lift, and then go for a run, and then eat and recover, and then go for a swim. Like I would put in those extra hours. Whereas my siblings, like, sure, they would wake up and work out, but the rest of the day was, I want to go to the beach, or I want to, you know, there were different choices being made. So it's interesting how you can, I'm just thinking like, as a parent, you can kind of show your kids all the same way, you know, like this is what it's going to take. And then each child gets to choose their own path, which is really cool hearing about Kate and her choice in choosing to go the drama route instead of the volleyball route. It's totally different. So much dedication and hard work is going to come into that too, but in a different way, maybe not so much physical, but maybe more mental, or building confidence in a different way. But it's just super cool to hear your story, Carrie, and then to see your kids and their success so far. And just like, I'm reflecting on mine. It's like, yeah, it's a journey passed down through generation. And it's just like generational trauma. It's just like all these things that we see now, but in a little bit of a different way. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason the way the circle came together, and I just think it's so cool, is that when I first started my blog and I said, I want to start this blog because I wish that I could find a diary from someone in my family in the past. And well, if I can't, at least I'll start this, and someday my kids will have something to read that they're going to know, whether they read it now or not, they'll be like, oh, this is what my mom was thinking. So, but when I look at it, I call it generational learning. And that's something it's such a hard concept to like articulate and say, oh, like in a short little soundbite, it's generational learning, it's generational wisdom, and it needs to be passed down. And there's so many ways to do it now. But, you know, we sit here on this call and I go, look, I just keep talking about that. And to have you here, like you're going to start your own family and we're having this conversation, and Carrie and I are sitting here like, I don't know, last night was the first Halloween. I didn't have a kid in the house. I didn't dress up in a costume or dress anybody else up in a costume. And, you know, granted, it's kind of a strange year, but like the transition, I mean, Carrie's talking about empty nesting, and these transitions, when we build these transitions into the mindful life, like we just keep creating greater health and greater expanded consciousness with all of these amazing generations of people. And I just get so excited about it because you're going to bring a little baby into this space. And like, you know, as an optimist, I just believe there's so much more good out there than bad. And every day you turn on the TV and you see, you know, this story and that story, and you go, I just want to turn it off. But then I get on, listen to a good growth mindset podcast, get on with you guys and go, no, the world is a great place. There's so much amazing stuff and amazing people doing incredible things. And we all, once we find our gifts and our talents, you know, as parents, that's our job to help guide our kids there. But then, you know, we end up in these places where we can help other people with through our trauma, through our joys and everything that we do, but we just have to be willing to talk about it, you know? So again, I'm really happy that you guys are willing to do that. And, you know, to go back to the way that, you know, we've all been built through some tough things. And Parker, your story of, you know, of your injury and the way that it brought your family together, and just the bond that it's created with you and Katie. I'm curious about, you know, what you've been doing with your training with the Resilience Lab and the mindful life, because you are pretty incredible with some of the stuff you've been putting out there.
Thanks. Yeah, there's so much on my mind right now. One of the things that I just thought about, Wendy, was how in our last call you said you believe that everyone is doing the best that they can with what they have, and I also believe that. And so when I think about this generational wisdom, generational learning, that's an interesting thing to think about, because I was imagining being in a position of, you know, being at a crossroads, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to pursue? And in one case, like weighing the pros and cons and being like, do I want to go out with friends? Do I want to work out? Do I like this? Do I like that? What do I want to do? And so there's like this analytical approach. And sometimes we're in a position to do that. Maybe you could call that mindfulness. Like, you know, you could step back and like be aware of all these different things. But there's also like an intuitive approach, which is like being mindful of your passion and just having that relationship with yourself. You know, sometimes it can be a really good relationship. Other times it could be trauma induced, you know, and your relationship with yourself could be one that really can feel tight, you know, and difficult. But that's interesting, because there's this spectrum of how we choose and how we navigate in the world. And so like my mom, I wouldn't be able to feel connected to this kind of intuitive guidance, as well as recognizing the sacrifices that I have to make, the hard work in terms of recovery, you know, and structure, and doing these things that will keep me connected to that intuition. So because of her path, which maybe like Mom, you said, there are times where you weren't taking care of your body, you know, and maybe that relationship with yourself was less than optimal, but your experience of that allowed me to have that more optimal relationship with myself. So that spectrum, that timeline of events is so interesting, because we may be doing what we best know how to do with what we have, but that's so different for everyone, because it's that choice for an individual in the moment is informed by that generational story that has allowed that person to choose the way that they best know how in the moment. And so if there was a $1 million answer, then we'd be able to sell it. But everyone has that different path, that different coming to know how to navigate in the world. And it just, you kind of figure it out through your experience, through your journey with resilience, with growth, with mindfulness.
And it's based on our story. And I think that, you know, it's funny, I was thinking this morning about this call, and when you come back to that quote about everybody is doing the best they can with what they know, you know, I think goes back to what Parker and Katie, when you guys were talking about the perfect path, like the path kind of stays perfect as long as you're willing to learn, right? As long as you're open to that growth. That's what I love about growth mindset, is that mistakes, you know, get reframed as challenges, and challenges are our opportunity to grow, right? So as long as, you know, as parents, you know, I've called it keeping it within the navigational beacons. Like, I do think there are some things that, you know, are very, very, will alter your life course huge, but, you know, most of the time we're just learning through experience. And, so as long as you're willing to keep growing and you're being informed by that generational story, you know, it's a beautiful path. There is no, you know, until it's there's not one thing you can do that just makes it over, right? That, like, you always can get better from, you know, the lowest low. So, that's what I love. I love that you go back to that quote, because that also makes me feel like I never want to be in a position where I don't like, there's always room for forgiveness. There's always room for, non-judgmental compassion about where someone is coming from. And like that's the beauty of the mindful life too, is that you just, you stay present with yourself, and you let what comes in around you, you have the presence of mind to not be triggered and react. And then if you are triggered, you're mindful enough to know, okay, there's something I need to work on.
An image just came to mind with, you mentioned like kind of hitting rock bottom. So on one side, I saw like this rock bottom state of the individual, and on the other, I saw this like heavenly, like divine guidance, like this, this image of like the generational wisdom coming down. But on the other side, it's the individual like in their own world at rock bottom. And it's almost like we exist between that. So as we get pushed more maybe into individual experience and then maybe suffering, to where we're like, what am I doing? How do I escape this where I am? And then you start to bounce back and maybe hear this side, or someone starts way on this side and they maybe just kind of take that for granted, and then they fall closer to, so that's kind of the duality that I see, that individual rock bottom versus the generational wisdom, and how both sides are wisdom in essence, but they're just comparatively different.
Luke, does that speak to you at all, and what you've been through? I mean, you had to absorb a day. I think it was July 2nd when you found out that your program was dropped. And I mean, to spend 7 years and put the amount of time that you put into your volleyball career, and then come through COVID, lose your senior year, and all of the, the disappointment. And as a mom, that was the hardest part of COVID, was watching this class of 2020 and just not get the rites of passage that, so many American kids have had, and especially to watch the ones that have worked so hard have things, pulled from them, when the totality of their life experience is right now, right? So I just kept thinking, we'll get to, we're going to get to the higher ground. Like he's losing this now, and then when that news came down, there was just like, there are no words. I kept saying the path will present itself, but Luke, that had to send you for a big loop, and you had to bounce back and forth in that place, and probably still are, which is understandable. What does that make you think about?
Yeah, apologies in advance if there's background noise, by the way. I got a lot of cars driving past. But I would say it's definitely a hard thing to bounce back from, just like you said. Like it was a blindside and completely out of nowhere. And it's weird having something you've worked for, and specifically like Stanford volleyball has been what I've been working for forever. And at the last second, like right when I've climbed to the top of that mountain, it was just pushed right off, and you go back to square one basically. And now, I have 1 year of this potentially, and I'm basically in a spot where I have to make the most of it. So I think the biggest takeaway for me, and the coolest thing about being an athlete, is now that I'm kind of through the quarantine and like the grind of just being stuck at home with really no certainty of what's coming, I would say the most gratifying thing is the relationships that I'm finally getting the chance to build. I think that's the most amazing thing about sports, and the thing we have to keep in mind is it's not necessarily always about what season you get to play or what team you get to be on. But if you're smart and you surround yourself with the right kind of people, it's super gratifying in the end, no matter what. Because at this point, my worst case scenario is, I met a team of awesome guys, and it's just more bonds and connections that I have going into the volleyball world and outwards. So I would say that's the most gratifying thing for me, and that's why it's super important to just keep your head up and stay focused on, even in this like super tough times where we don't always know what's coming. It's really crucial to just keep pushing forward, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, bringing up gratitude that's huge, because I was looking at Carly's blog last night, and interestingly enough, I clicked on the one that was published on Lauren's birthday, which is also my mom's birthday. So, and you wrote about gratitude that day. And that's definitely something Lauren and I talk about a lot. And then hearing Luke talk about that as the center of, sustaining such a blow to something you've worked so hard at. I wanted to read something from Carly's blog that day, and then I'm kind of curious on Carly and Lauren's thoughts on this, or well, Carly's thoughts, but Katie's and Lauren's thoughts on this from Carly's words on July 28th. But it said, "I believe we must be intentional in how we want to experience life for us to be in a space of receiving the gifts we are wishing for. With that, I feel that the more we focus on anything, the bigger it grows. If we put intentional, grateful thought towards specific things, those things expand. The more we find gratitude, the more abundant our lives." And I think both of you that's going to resonate with both of you. And Carly, those words they're awesome. They're beautiful.
Thank you. I'll say one thing, you guys can talk more about it, but I think I remember that, I don't remember if that blog post came from like nothing, because I think I didn't really have anything to write about, and usually when I sit down to write for my blog, I'm like, it's pretty clear like what I'm focusing on that day. And if I remember correctly, I sat down and I was like, I just started writing in my journal, and then I started realizing that everything I was writing about was just, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this, and then I was like, okay, I need to write about gratitude today. And gratitude, I mean, it's one of the most, I don't know, I'm so impressed by, I'm assuming, well, Luke, if you're in your first year, you're around 18, 19, Lauren, you're maybe 20. You guys are like younger than I was when I started thinking and understanding this concept of gratitude. And it's so amazing to see that you guys are aware and like conscious and mindful of this concept, because it completely has changed my life. Like, not just gratitude, but the things that come with that. And so when I write about it, it's true. I'm such a firm believer that whatever we focus on in life, whether it's something good or something bad, it tends to magnify. And with my volleyball career, the times that I was struggling and feeling like I was lacking or wasn't enough or wasn't performing well, if I was in that space, it tended to get worse. It would spiral, negative self-talk would grow, and I wouldn't make rosters. And I was in the national team gym for 10 years, for the first 6, dealing with this spiral of like, why am I not? And why is this happening to me? And then once I started understanding gratitude and acceptance and realizing that I'm attracting to myself what it is that I want in my life, what it is that I believe I can have. And I started being grateful for everything, every bad experience, every missed roster, every loss, and being grateful for it and finding the lesson and the good in it. My life literally did a 180. And it's something that it's incredible, just this one practice. And so I'm so grateful that we're talking about this right now, because this state that I've been in this last month with my pregnancy, with my entire life going one direction and now completely changing direction, I've lost it a little bit. And so I'm like, oh my God, Carly, why haven't, the one thing that you've done for the last 6 years, the last month, I like feel like I've been spinning in a space of what do I need? And I'm sitting here like so grateful, because like, it's so simple. It really is. This practice can change everything in a moment. So I just wanted to say that, because it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't read my blog in a while. I haven't written in a while, because like I've just been uncomfortable and feeling strange things, and my body's changing, and like there's so much going on. But I'm so grateful for you guys, and this is so cool. It's really cool that you brought this specific one up, because it's what I needed today. So I just wanted to say that. But I am curious how you guys use gratitude in your lives, and whatever else. That's so cool. Thanks.
I just want to say the thing that you read, Wendy, that really spoke to me. And Carly, that's amazing, because I'm sitting here and it instantly, when you started reading, reminded me of something that I wrote 2 years ago in 2018. And this journal entry has actually come up in conversation when my brother and I were talking about all the similar stuff. When you acknowledge things and you're grateful for them, more things come your way that are meant to be in your life. And then, so my journal's sitting right here, and I opened it, and it's like my second journal entry in this book. And it is basically the same thing that Carly was writing. And I kind of want to read it out loud because it's so applicable. So I said, we are surrounded by, divine order. That's like the main thing. We are surrounded by it every single day of our lives, yet only a small amount of people acknowledge and choose to live within it. I feel like the more you pay attention to the small details of divine order, the easier the bigger ones fall into place. We're all put on this world with a purpose, so you might as well just trust the universe in putting you on the right path. Yes, the decisions we make are important, but intuition is what helps our decisions, and it is possible for everyone to have a good intuition. You just have to listen to it. The perfect order of the world amazes me every day, and the more I acknowledge it, the better life is. So like thinking about how similar that journal entry is to that blog post, and thinking that this was 2 years ago when like I was first becoming aware of, Carly, like you said, the things that can really change your life and put you in a different perspective. That was kind of the start of my journey with all of this. So I don't know, it's just all of that speaks to me so much, and I'm such a believer in the way you see things every day is what really kind of allows your path to be put in front of you and to fulfill your purpose. And being
I feel like you should talk about your favorite book and the manifestation. And
yeah,
for
well,
sure.
so last year I think I fell upon this book at a thrift store actually. It's called Your Heart's Desire by Sonia Choquette. She's a spiritual author, and more towards like the more like psychic type stuff. I don't know what other word to use, but I started reading this book last winter when I had heard that I had the ability to kind of like try out for the beach team at Long Beach State, because I was just playing indoor. I just committed to play indoor, but I was interested in beach, and I knew the coaches, and it was something that I thought I could really go for, but I wasn't sure where I stood. In Oregon, we don't really have beach volleyball. I'd never really played before. But when the coach said, hey, you can come try out, and my indoor coaches said, all right, you have about 3 weeks in January to see if you make one of the top 5 pairs. And if you do, you can play. But if you don't make one of the top 5 pairs, we have to keep you for indoor during off season. So I found that book, I started reading it, and I realized that my ultimate goal is to make one of the top 5 pairs on the beach team. So reading that book, she talks a lot about manifesting your goals and visualizing basically what you want to achieve and applying that to your everyday life and feeling into those emotions that you're wanting to feel, you know? So it was like an interactive journal type book, and I read it and was using it all winter and during those 3 weeks of like tryouts basically. And it started to kind of come to life. And I didn't really know like where I stood on the beach team as I was going through that training in January. And eventually my coach had told me, or the lineup before the first tournament came out, and he said, hey, you're pair number 3. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening. I'm actually living out what my goal was. Like, I can't believe this is real. And then we played in our first tournament, and me and my partner won our games. And I just remember like after that day, it was like I was literally living out my visualizations of what I had been dreaming about all winter. And it was just so crazy. And since then, and then I moved up to pair 2, and I was playing the top pairs of LMU and Stetson, and I was like, what is this? Like, I came from not playing beach volleyball to suddenly just realizing it's what I wanted to do. And then here I am, like fully living out these goals. So that has completely like changed my view on life, similar to what you're saying, Carly. Like, just you can achieve really anything you want if you work hard for it and you have the desire to get there. Those are the biggest things in life. So yeah, I'm grateful that I read that book and worked hard for those goals, and I'm where I am now. And yeah, super grateful for all the experiences in life that have shaped me to be here now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And to play 2 sports like that, and then to achieve that goal and see, I mean, I can't imagine like even just the rise in your confidence, and to know like, it just has to feel like the sky's the limit, right? I mean, when you have those building blocks, like I like to say, you know, the beauty is when we learn to master the simple and the art of in the midst of the complex. Like life can feel like so overwhelming and complex, but when you get those building blocks right, and it's like gratitude is one of them, health is healthy eating and hydration and all these things that we like, use to just create our vessel, then like the sky really is the limit. It's pretty amazing. But Lauren, I know you and I talk about gratitude a lot, and I know you use it. So how does that, Carly's words, how do those speak to you?
Well, like similar to what Katie was saying, I feel like that's a really big, like when you were reading it, I was kind of like, this is things that run through my head all the time. I think that my gratitude and my motivation are like super closely related for me. Like for me, I always feel like I have an opportunity as an athlete. I think it's like a blessing that when you're an athlete, that you get to like have very concrete goals, like making the top 5 pairs, which is like the same thing for me. Like you get to have a concrete goal that you can work for, and there are like things that you can do. There's paths you can take. And I think that that's really gratifying and fulfilling. And it makes a lot of other parts of your life a lot easier and a lot less pressure filled when you put so much focus into something and you have success in it. It makes you feel more confident in other things. And like, I feel grateful every day when I get to get up and go to weights in the morning. Like, obviously it's hard and I don't want to get up at 5:20 in the morning, but like my brother, for example, is at home, like trying to find opportunities to play. And I get to get up every day. Like maybe I have to put on a mask and get my temperature taken. And maybe I don't get to like go hug all my friends and go see them all the time. Maybe I just get to see my roommates, but at least I'm getting to work towards something that's going to make me fulfilled. And like that gratitude kind of works in a chain reaction where it makes everything better. It makes me want to do the things that are hard because I get to do them versus I have to do them. And then actually I was thinking about a book that I've been reading too. It's called Get Out of Your Head. And the author basically is just talking about like the way that you can change your thoughts to change like progress and make you feel better about like things that are hard, maybe like mental health stuff as well. And he says, our emotions are a byproduct of the way that we think. And I think like gratitude really plays into that for me. Like when I'm having a really hard time and when I'm like, because this year has been really hard for everyone, like when you feel really down, especially this year, I think that for me, like the most calming thing I can do is break down like each thing I do every day and how grateful I am that I get to do it, how grateful I am that I have a great roommate who's going to bring me a coffee in the morning and knows what I want to order, or that my coaches appreciated the way that I worked on my setting today. Like one thing, like realizing how great that one thing can be can really change like my whole perception of how I'm feeling. Like maybe I'm sad now, but also like I have this sadness because I have so much. Like I'm so lucky to have so many good things that like sometimes feeling down is going to happen, but like I get to return to all these good things. And I think that that really just makes like everything in life a little bit better when you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I would agree. And this time of this unknown, I mean, it really does come back to us, holding on to the things that, that ground us. And it's always those grounding moments when we feel like we're being lifted up and tossed around. And 2020 has definitely done that for everybody, and athletes in particular. And Kate's hasn't been on a theater stage. They did a whole play via Zoom that the screen looked like this, and it was an entire production. So that it's been a weird year, but coming back to the things that we're grateful for definitely is it's just a game changer. So I actually see it as part of I wrote this week about recovery and how hard it can be for high achievers to put emphasis on the recovery process and how sometimes it can feel like, in my head, it used to feel like rest was lazy, or that I needed to always be doing. And the concept that I've hooked into from Finding Mastery, that Michael Gervais podcast that I listen to all the time, is just the concept of really focusing on being more versus doing more. And when that sunk in on me, I was like, oh my gosh, that is like the greatest place to rest, because when we just get to be who we are, it doesn't feel like work. You know, I mean, I know Lauren, you've said to me, like, I'm always happy when I'm playing volleyball. I've seen Kate on the stage, like she's lit up. Like when we have those places, I looks the same way on a volleyball court or, you know, with his friends. Like he's just like this personality that comes out of us when we're really getting to be authentically who we are. The more space that we can find in our day to be that person, and as we're more confident to be that person. And I think that's such an, you know, at your guys' age, learning to have confidence in who you are and show the world that. Sometimes when like your teammates or people, you know, kid in theater, when like and you've been on enough volleyball teams even where the motivation can be so different between all of us. And, you know, having the confidence to be yourself when everybody around you isn't necessarily thinking like you. Carly and I were talking about that the other day, and I know Katie, we've talked about it, and Lauren and I have talked about it. Like, how do you guys see, how do you have the confidence to show up as yourselves in the world when maybe you're feeling different or, you know, different than your teammates or than people around you?
I don't know. I feel like that's a tough place to be in, especially when you feel like your differences, like you want to share with others, or things that kind of set you apart that you think others could benefit from. For example, like growing up and in high school and even freshman year, I always wanted to share my little like, oh, guys should try yoga and you should try this, and like, oh, this book that I'm reading. And and I think we mentioned this last time, it's hard to put that upon people and be like, hey, you should try this, like it's helping me, and like I'm this way. You know, it's more of like, you just be who you are, even if it is different, if it's setting you apart from others. Just be who you are, and then in time, those people who genuinely want to experience that for themselves or are curious, they'll come to you and ask you about it. You know, it's the little light bulbs setting off other light bulbs. I think like at times it's hard and you do feel different, and that can be kind of discouraging sometimes, but just having a sense of, like for me, just having a sense of knowing that like what I'm doing individually is setting me up for to achieve my goals, and hopefully I can shine that light towards others and help them see that for themselves as well. But yeah, so I think it's just coming back to a place of finding the intrinsic confidence and knowing within yourself.
That's
Carly,
awesome.
Yeah, Carly, you
Yeah.
had some really good stuff to say about that the other day.
Well, it's interesting. I loved our conversation the other day, and I think the context when we were talking about this was mostly around women's teams and around women, because not that every woman is like this, but we tend to be catty, and there's comparison and there's jealousy and there's all these things that go with just one being a woman, especially with social media now and all of these things you're supposed to be and you're supposed to do this. And I've learned, I guess over a longer period of time, but in the last few years, especially when you're on a national team and you're training and there are 2 spots for your position and girls are making maybe sly comments, or they try to make you feel bad about putting in extra work, or judging you for, I don't know, showing up early and getting extra like these things that it's hard at first to like, I'm here to work really hard, and like I have my values, and this is what I want to achieve, and I'm really clear on who I am and what I value and all these things, and I'm actually here to make this team the best it can be. But then you have, you know, different things happening around you, and it makes you question, well, am I actually, should I not be doing it this way? And it makes you question yourself. And I started realizing that through reading a lot of books, through conversations with different, with a life coach that I had for a while, and I've worked with sports psychologists, a psychiatrist. I've had all kinds of help over the years, because as a high performing athlete, it's really hard to do it alone. I think everyone deserves and needs, and we should all be helping each other all the time. But when you're an athlete in these environments, you feel the pressure to have all the answers and like just stand strong and you can handle everything. And anyways, I started learning that a lot of these people, just in general, there's a lot of projection going on. So if someone's struggling with something internally with themselves, a lot of times you'll feel that being projected onto you. And so it wasn't that what I was doing maybe was wrong, that getting the extra reps or lifting extra weights or, pushing hard was wrong. It was that maybe that person wasn't feeling confident because they were seeing the extra work I was putting in willingly, and they were trying to make me feel bad about it instead of maybe taking the initiative to do it themselves too. And that's in everything in life. I see it happening a lot with younger kids too now, like some bullying. When bullying happens, I feel it's also a sign of something going on inside someone that they're uncomfortable with, they're struggling with. Maybe it's something at home, and then they're putting it onto another kid, and that child feels, or that person feels like it's their fault when it's not at all. And so I feel like that happens in the sporting world a lot, and it's really hard. But once we start understanding that, and once I started understanding that, it immediately turned into compassion, because I could look at this person and see that they're maybe struggling with something. And instead of having the awareness and the ability to relay information to me in a certain way, they were doing it in the only way that they knew how. And it was maybe intending to be hurtful to me, but I could then have compassion for them and hopefully heal that space and move that negative energy out and not accept it because it wasn't mine. And I think that's something that we all can work with as human beings, because there's always exchange of energy. I think that's how we connect with people and why we don't connect with people. And I'm a big energy person. I feel it all the time. I love talking about these deep connections and these conversations. And so I think that's a part of it, is the confidence to be yourself, to show up in any space and be who you know you are. And it's coming from a good place, and that hopefully can spread, like Katie was saying. And it doesn't mean that you need to put something that you think is good onto someone, but allow them to show up in your space. And if they want something from you, or they want more information, great. But if they don't, their time will come. It's all about timing for everyone, I feel. So.
Yeah. And I think there's so much, maybe comfort's not the right word, because that comfort gets a bad rap these days. But I do think that there is something about establishing a rapport and knowing that we all struggle with the same things, that there's so much universal truth to our stories, and that when we can feel really alone in something we're struggling with. And then when we realize that, oh my gosh, everybody at every walk of life, from, Olympians to 13-year-old girls, we're all struggling with the same stuff. And the things that we also have to teach the world are coming from the things that we most need to learn ourselves, right? So you put yourself in this position where you bounce back and forth between teacher and student, and realize that you're always in a position to do both. And then magic happens. It's the coolest stuff. But yeah, I do think that realizing that you're not alone in the struggle is really, really important.
I want to hear Kate's take on this, because I know your experience with, exploring and understanding ourselves and making choices for ourselves and self-confidence, you're in that right now. So I want to hear what you've been going through.
Yeah. For me, the whole motivation to do what I want and be myself has come from when I was with my teammates, I didn't feel like I was motivated in the same way that they were. You were talking about feeling like being a certain type of person while doing what you love. I didn't feel that while I was playing volleyball. And I do feel that when I'm on the stage. And making this transition has been so rewarding, because I've been able to make these connections with people who are like-minded and people who have similar interests, which I haven't really ever been able to do before. And then that all goes back to being grateful, because it makes it so much easier for me to be grateful about all of these experiences that I've had. Because when I was still doing a lot of volleyball, I had a lot of trouble being grateful for those experiences because I felt like it was taking away from doing what I really loved. But now that I am doing what I care about, it's like I can be grateful for what I'm doing now, and I can be grateful for those experiences I've had with volleyball, and I can play volleyball now and have so much more fun doing it than I ever was able to before.
Yeah, she likes to play with me now. It's really fun. So, yeah, I do think watching Kate blossom through this, like just come through it. One of her coaches told me that one of her teammates, this was offline and Kate wasn't standing there, but one of her teammates said, wow, Kate's really brave. And I came home and told her this, and the teammate said, she's really brave. Like, I wouldn't have had the confidence to tell my mom that I didn't want to play when I have an older brother and sister that are really good, and they're volleyball players, and Kate's a good volleyball player, but then she just decided she wanted to do something else, and she was really brave to do that. And like, I came home and told her that, and just to think that it really is that journey to self-awareness. It's not about any one sport or one activity, because I always use the metaphor of the game of life. It's what we learn, on the court and on the stage and in any area that we're really immersed, that the lessons apply, right? Whether it's discipline, it's working hard, it's finding compassion, it's gratitude, it's all of these things. But if we're not immersed in what we're doing, if we're just going through the motions, gosh, life is we're just swimming in the shallow end, and when you get to that place where you want to dive deep and really understand yourself, that's where all the gold is. And so to have a 15-year-old that was like confident enough to say, like, this is what and she and I went back and forth on it. And I did a lot of learning, not because I'm so attached to her being an amazing volleyball player, but because I wanted her moving, and I wanted her, I want her with a coach. And that goes to one of my other questions that I wanted to ask you guys is, I really believe that the messenger is important, and the messenger doesn't always have to be a parent, right? So sports and theater and all the things we do, it provides us with these different messengers. And, where do we get, that we have to be open to getting that knowledge, right? So you don't always want to hear it from your mom. So if you guys could, pick somebody that has been, besides your parent, a really important messenger in your life, maybe we could go around and say, like, you can give it some thought. But Parker, do you have anybody that you would say has been a really important messenger outside of your family that you've found through sports?
Just not any one particular, but the feedback in one word, feedback. It's like that life is always giving us feedback through other people, through, if I'm not mindful and I'm going in the morning and I bang my toe on the side of the wall, like, that's just feedback that I was not present in this, like, flowing as I can. But as I've developed, and I feel like I wanted to say this, I'm not a parent, but it seems like one of the most difficult things to balance and manage and assist in parenting is the passions that come up. And I had, as a kid, I wanted to do so many different things. And I was very lucky that we lived in a big, farm and outdoor place. And I had the athletic, platforms and stuff to be able to explore those passions. And through doing so, then other people say things, my own body says things, and I get all this feedback that eventually, takes me along this path and kind of brings me to this point of understanding of how I've gotten this far. And that has been through my, I've had a lot of feedback. So here's the key insight that I was looking for, is that I have been able to be myself because my parents gave me the opportunity to express myself and continue to do so. So as I've continued to be myself in the classroom, as a leader, in all these different circumstances, people give me feedback like, some of you like to talk more than others, and so you're going to have to learn how to shut up. Like, that's me. So I've had to learn that. But because I'm myself, and because I am not afraid to speak up and raise my hand first, then I receive the feedback. if I'm not honoring who I am and I'm not embodying that true self, then the feedback's not really gonna get to me, because I'm not showing that the fullness of myself and the feedback that I need to grow into that authentic self. So feedback and honoring feedback and listening to feedback has been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, that's really good. Anybody else have something they want to say on mentors and feedback and that type, how we grow?
Yeah, I'll speak quickly about, as you were talking, two people came to mind and they were like polar opposite. And one of them was a massage therapist I met through the national team, but not related. And then I had a coach overseas in Brazil, or actually I had a coach, a professional coach. I shouldn't be so specific, but, and they were both teachers. They're both guides, because they've both shown up in they're both wise, and they're, at the top of what they're doing. They're masters, pretty much masters of their craft. So I'm in a space with a massage therapist. He's healing my body, helping me understand what's going on. I'm injured. I'm feeling these things. And as I talk to him, as I'm relaying information to him, he's so open to anything that's coming out of me. Like, there's no judgment. There's space to show up fully as myself, to talk about whatever I need to talk about. And the interaction with a guide, to me, that's that you're supposed to learn from both, but where there's so much room for growth and wisdom is when there's space to be fully yourself and to be open and to communicate, and to just there's no filter. It's just, this is who I am. This is what I feel. This is what I need. And that person's providing feedback to you. And it's just this, it's fluid. And then there's a space where, again, a master of their craft, and you're supposed to be learning from this person. But if you speak, there's a wall. There's no space for you to show up. There's no space for you to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I feel I need. And I've learned that there's different types of guides in our lives that show us different things. And for one, this massage therapist was showing me, you have so much potential. This is the information you need to learn so you can be better. And then I have a coach that's saying, although you have all this experience, I don't want to hear from you. I don't care how you feel about this. I don't, it's just like he didn't want to grow with me. Whereas this master of his craft, he wanted to learn and grow with me. And so he was totally open to this fluid conversation. And it's so interesting because we can learn from both. I learned from this coach that if I were ever to be a coach, I would never put a wall up in front of any athlete, no matter what they're bringing to me. And I learned from this coach over here that someone can say whatever they need to say, and there's space for it because it's their reality. And so there's so many possibilities in life with the people that we come across. And I learned from both people, very different things. And at the time wasn't super grateful for one of them, but in the aftermath of it now, I look back and I learned so much from him, just like I learned from this wonderful massage therapist that's taught me so much. So anyway, just like, it's just interesting how we can have different types of guides in our lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I don't want to, our last conversations have been right around an hour, and I know there's more of us today, so I don't want to cut anybody off, but I don't want to take up your whole days either. So I just want to say, like, I'm sitting here thinking about this, and the other thing Carly wrote on her blog was she said, I was birthed by the most incredible human I have come to know. And so she obviously has a really strong relationship with her mom. Parker and Katie are, here with their mom, and I'm sure Barry is around. And and I look, and I have my 3, and my 4th one is texting me. So, and he's up visiting with my mom. So, and I look at all of our families, and they're all set up completely different, right? We've all been shaped by, different forces and joys and traumas. And it just makes me realize, like, there is no one recipe for success. There's no one family recipe for success. It's having this supportive community that allows you to be yourself and walk your path and, love you unconditionally. And to see, like, all of us come here today, like, like Carrie says, it puts a lump in my throat, because it's just being open to when you think something has got to be one way, you really just lock you lock yourself down, and you set yourself up to be disappointed. But when you're just open to the experience, and you see that families come together in these most incredible ways, and as long as we're honest in walking that path, we all have just infinite potential. And so thank you guys for putting yourselves out there and giving me this conversation. And if anybody else has anything they want to add, or that we didn't chat about, I would love to hear.
I have a little thing. I just a quick insight on the mentorship, and I was thinking about kids and these incredible young people that we have with us today that are living their truths and their authentic self. And I think I bet it's really, really challenging to put that out there, because what I see in their culture is their peers are kind of getting, it seems, everything they need, maybe from their phone and social media. And they're constantly under this microscope and judging themselves and judging other people. And I'm sad for the lack of exchange, or maybe advice, or like when I think of my own kids, Katie went through high school completely sober. It was her goal to never drink, smoke, and to maintain good grades and get a 4.0. And she did that. And she went to the parties and had some dialogue with folks about that. And then Parker and his out there mindfulness and all the stuff he posts about his passion for that, those are beautiful things. And I kind of often reflect on how little, if any, of their peers come to them and talk to them about that and go, I'm curious, I've been partying too much, and I noticed, Katie, that you don't or didn't. What's up with that? Or, hey, Parker, talk to me about your practice, because they don't. And they almost, it seems like there's such a competition. And I think about, like, with Kate, with the theater and volleyball, and what Carly was talking about with the competitions on the team. Life is a competition, and all these young peers are competing, and everyone's sort of in their ego mind and ego time of life. That 19 to 25 is huge. And it's selfish on purpose. You're trying to establish your way. But the mentors that appear in your life, I think, are going to be the older folks, maybe the Wendy and I's age, the coaches, those people that appear, like Parker with Courtney Thompson, and they will see that in you, and they will see those little light bulbs, and perhaps say, hey, Katie, I noticed you're really into nutrition. You seem to be nailing the veganism thing. Why don't you talk to the team about that? Or they'll pluck you out and use you as a vehicle to shine your light around your peers. And it might take that sort of relationship for them to spot it and grab you and go, it's like they know that the peers aren't going to come to you for it. And so you kind of get chosen to maybe share it, or maybe it's not happening. I don't know, but
I hear you on that. And I actually think that is maybe one of the greatest gifts a coach or a parent or a mentor, and really it's hard as a parent. So I would say even a mentor or a coach can give an athlete or a student, help elevate them to that platform, like give them the credibility to speak, even though inherently Katie has the ability to speak on nutrition and Parker has the ability to speak on mindfulness, and they do, and they have the confidence, which is awesome. But you don't always have that audience. But I think when a coach or a mentor can come in and say, wow, we see what you're doing, and we think it's great, and we think you can help other people, that does elevate the conversation. And it's not that, I think youth is incredible. And when I see promising youth, it's so inspiring. But I do think that is something that people, of my generation, Carrie's generation, even Carly's generation, can do for the younger people, is to elevate, and that's hopefully what we can do with these conversations, because, little by little, like you say, little light bulbs daily, and to take that from another connection that my friend Christy from her blog, but, Yeah, it sets off a chain reaction, but it's definitely, that goes back to that power of generational learning and wisdom. And yeah, we need to be doing that and elevating you guys, and helping you build your platforms, and because you have some amazing things to say, and not just say, but you live it, and that's even more important. It's the actions. People will take note, and in time it will build. There's no doubt. That's the optimist in me. But I do think it is incumbent upon us, the older generation, to push you guys forward. So anyway, is there anything else anyone wants to add today? This has been incredible, and I hope that there was enough conversation. I tried to get around to all of you, and I hope there weren't too many of us on here, but this is just some really, really great thought. So are we wrapped up for now? And I would love to keep this going, and maybe my thoughts are going towards like covering one specific topic. Like we could get on and talk shorter. We could do like a half an hour and talk specifically about recovery. And we don't always have to do all 7 of us. Like, Carrie and I can talk, or Katie and I can talk, or the 3 of us. I do think I love it, when you have your own kids on. It's kind of like when I used to coach my kids, they used to ask why I would put them in last. I think, Luke, you remember that. Why don't you let me play mom? You don't really want to sit and have too much conversation with just your kids, because I never want to feel like, I do feel like they have done so much for themselves that I just feel honored to be a part of their journey. But yeah, I think when we mix it up, it shows that you guys are all out there doing great things. And I think also making those connections between your generation and people that have like minds for you guys, like Katie and Lauren. I mean, I know if you guys were in the same room, you'd be friends. Like, you would, it's really fun to put that together. So if you guys are up to just keep continuing this conversation, and maybe pick a specific topic and do it every so often, every couple of weeks or something like that, and we can just keep on, just push the envelope a little bit, if you guys are interested.
Good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this was awesome, Wendy. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. It's really cool to hear such like a variety of ages and like so much wisdom in this conversation, which is really cool. And I'm just thankful for all of you guys. Thanks for making my day better today. It started off hard. So I appreciate all of you.
Hang in there, Carly.
Thank you, Carly. Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being so open and willing. Like I'm telling you, this connection came out of nowhere this week, you guys, and it's like we've had maybe 3. We even got to play volleyball together yesterday. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for being willing to join, and it's really awesome to have you here. So
honestly, this is so cool, because I just really quickly, I've been doing Zoom calls with a lot of different teams, college teams, high school teams, club teams, coaches, mostly around volleyball, and the conversation of how do you stay motivated in a time like this, and how do you achieve your goals? What's it like to be an Olympian? What's your favorite? All these moments. And it's great. I love those conversations, but conversations like this, when you dive deep into kind of what is life about? What are we all doing here? Why are we here? How can we help each other grow and connect? And this stuff is so powerful. And as a mom to be, I'm so grateful for you, Carrie and Wendy, just watching you guys raise kids mindful that in this generation, because it's tough out there. And this is really cool to see and really inspirational. So I'm pumped, and I can't wait to learn more, because this is my jam. I say that all the time, like, this is the stuff I love. I love deep conversations. That's why I have my blog. That's why I put all of my vulnerability out there, because it's the only way to change the world for the better, I believe. So thank you. And
Amen.
So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And my kiddos, if you guys look at her blog, you'll be like, wait. And then my best friend, I showed it to my I sent it to her and I said, look at her vlog. And she goes, is she your twin? And I was like, no, she's not my twin, but I'm like kindred spirits for sure. Because like what we talk about and just in our blogs and the way we laid it out, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I see it.
Yeah, totally.
It just, you find each other. So you guys we're all finding each other, and it's really, really amazing. So thank you for being here, and we'll be in touch, and feel free to reach out. We have, thanks for naming the group chat, Carrie, Mindful Family. So just, stay there and put stuff in there anytime you want, and let's just keep the conversation going.
Thanks, Wendy.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice to meet y'all.
Okay.
You too.
Bye, guys.